to Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary podcast. I'm your host, Scotty B. This week we are talking about storytelling. A story about storytelling. But before I get into everything, just the introduction and the where you can find me. Of course, you can find me on Instagram at Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary. Feel free to tweet me at HoCS podcast. You can find me on Vero at Scotty B Official, and of course, YouTube links are always in the show notes. Find me on YouTube, like, comment, and subscribe to the Heroes of Cosplay Sanctuary channel, where right now all of the back episodes are growing up, but we will have much more content for you in coming weeks, in coming months, and as we continue to grow, a safe place for you, the cosplayer, to share your story, to talk about the industry, your fandom, really collaborate and network. This is your space, and it will always be your space. So let's talk about storytelling. What do I mean by that? If you're going to have a show, if you're going to produce something that you want someone to follow or be interested in, you need to tell your story or a story. There's a lot that goes into that thought process, at least for me. There are cosplayers with hundreds of followers, there are cosplayers with millions of followers, there are hobbyists, there are creators, there are makers, there are YouTubers, social media cosplayer only, the con-goers, the full-timers, the part-time full-timers, the full-time con guests, the panelists, the part-timers, the celebrity there's so many, there's Baskin Robbins, it's so many different types of cosplayers in the space. So really, how do you find your tribe, and how does your story stand out? How do you set yourself apart in a crowd? And what if you don't even want to set yourself apart? It's your story. It's the story you want to tell. And that's when you see a good story, or when you see a great story, or the documenting, the process, the growth. Sometimes I see it on cosplay channels, sometimes I don't. There are a lot of fan sites that really don't have anything to do with that. There are a lot of feature sites that don't have anything to do with that. I will try my best, if that's what this is, if Heroes of Cosplay on Instagram or any other space, sharing your story, or just a sort of a fan site where we feature everyone else, well, I'm going to make sure that there's progress, not perfection. It's going to be about your story. It's going to be about you. So we want there to be documenting. I don't want it to be about driving more people to your OnlyFans subscription, or whatever the heck it is now, or your coffee. By the way, I have a coffee. No, your Patreon. It's not just that. It's about how you tell a story, not how you sell a photo. So that's what we want, and that's really what makes you unique and sets you apart in the industry. But really, I just want to share with you my story about storytelling. What are we doing when we tell a story? When we weave that imagery, or that we create that fandom for someone else? It's sharing your journey. It's sharing your journey in cosplay, not just produced photo after produced photo after produced photo. It can be, if that's your journey, what interests you, what is it all about? If you're being followed by someone online, if you have a fan base, if you have a tribe, if you found your tribe, there's something being shared that either interests you or that others are interested in. And really, no one else can do it the way that you can do it. That's what you have. Getting good at storytelling, the compelling drama, the comedy, is that really what it is? Do you have to be a comedian? Do you have to be dramatic? Do you have to act constantly? Is it really just about pantomime and performance art like TikTok? In my practice, in my years of trying to get everything started and going online, and eventually we will have a TikTok, maybe we will by the time this airs, getting good, which means you practice, which means you document, which means you don't care about the numbers. It's not a numbers game about driving up followers who may or may not even know who you are, or just clicking a button to see if they can get you to click a button. You want to try different things. You want to share different things. You want to document. And that may get you out of your comfort zone. But that is what I mean by telling your story. So you'll probably need ideas for content. And really, you don't You don't have, like, if you want to be on multi-platforms, or if you want to be on one platform, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. You don't have to sit there and get anxious about how much different content that you can come up with every day or every few hours or every hour, or how many stories you have to crank out. By the way, 50 is the magic number if you're looking for one. You have a story to tell, and you're interesting because you're the only one with that story. So if people are following you, they probably want to know more about you. Not everything. I mean, there are details and mundanities of life that really just don't matter. Everybody brushes their teeth. Everybody goes to bed. There's just things that, why are we sharing this? But there are interesting things. There are moments that you do want to share with everybody. And that's the whole point of social media, is being social, right? Hey, even making a podcast can be interesting. Here we are. Here I am making a podcast. And if I listen to, which I have, because I've been uploading the early podcasts onto YouTube, because that's my thing right now. When you listen to yourself when you first start, you go, wow, that was so awkward. I feel like I've gotten better. I sound like I've gotten better. I feel like there's a little bit more of a command in the space than there was when I first started. There are, some of the early episodes are okay, but for the most part, I just like, how are people clicking on that? Like, you really do doubt yourself, but you do look at the growth and you see the process and you feel like, okay, this is documenting. This is where I'm comfortable doing it, and it's not the same for everybody. Some people like to write, some people like to talk, some people like to record themselves on video, some people like to take pictures. There's different mediums, and there's combinations of mediums. If you have an interest in something and you have a fandom and you're a cosplayer, and that's what you want to do and that's what you want to talk about, whether it's on a podcast or whether it's on Instagram or wherever it happens to be, chances are there's somebody else. There's one other person. Do we need 4 million friends? That's a lot of friends. Chances are there's somebody else out there that has similar or the same interests as you and maybe wants to know more or wants to know what you think. And maybe you want to know what they think about that cosplay, about that fandom, about whatever it is that keeps you sharing your content, that keeps you creating. Maybe they want to know about how you make the armor. Maybe they want to know about sewing. I asked Babs Butcher about a backdrop. I mean, sometimes you just, like, there are people who just know this stuff and they just happen to be live and I happen to ask them a question. It's because they have compelling content. It's because they're willing to share their story. They're willing to document. They're willing to tell the story. And I really appreciate that. And if they answer a question, and again, I think I've talked about there's really no time limit on that. I'm just one guy out here in a space, and you get to me when you get to me because you got other important things to do, and it is your time. But hey, if I have a question, I'm going to ask you because I'm new to the world of cosplay in terms of what I can do and what I can't. And I really do need to get that backdrop done because I do want to use it for TikTok. So thank you, Babs, if you're listening. And even if you're not, thanks. You really do put a lot of great content out there. Not to single you out, but a lot of people put a lot. It's like everybody's doing a really great job. At least, the people that I know about, I don't know everything. I don't follow everyone. So many of you that work so hard. Part of me doing these podcasts is to try to give back to that. There's so much going on. I mean, there's so much time given. There's so many charity events. There's so many donations and fundraisers that it really overshadows any of the negative things that people associate with cosplay. For me, maybe it's not your experience, but it's mine. Storytelling really builds the know, like, and trust. It's the people in your space. They know you, they like you, and they trust you, and that is who will buy. So if it is about that, if you want people to get your stuff, if you want somebody to buy your t-shirt, that is how you do that. You generate the know, like, and trust. You find your tribe, and you give. You give a lot. You give a lot for free, so that when the time comes for that ask, it doesn't seem like much. They are very willing to say, okay, yeah, I think I want one of those. I think this looks like a really good idea. I think this book is going to have value for me, and I'll pay $24.99 for the hardcover, And maybe I'll even come to your con and you can sign it for me. Oh, that would be fun if I actually saw a cosplayer with a book. I haven't yet. I'm sure they're out there. But yeah, I would definitely want a signed copy of that. So how do you get started? You tell your story. It's that simple. What are you doing? Do you have to spend a lot of time scripting out things? Well, you can spend some time scripting out things, but you're just sharing your story. And not just on the gram, okay? You don't have to just hit that record button, but there's building, there's creating, there's just pushing out different types of content that makes sense to you in whatever medium that you are sharing that. That might be Instagram. I think that seems to come up the most because that's just the most common right now. There's 500 million people there, maybe more, maybe 1 billion. I don't know. There's a lot more than other platforms like Vero or I don't know what else is out there. Snapchat. There's all sorts of different spaces. Even YouTube. There's tons of space. Tell your story where you want to tell your story. And if it isn't you, that's fine. Because really, cosplay isn't about signing up to put yourself on display. It's signing up to express fandom. And how you do that and what you create, that's up to you. And if you're doing it because your friends are doing it, or if you're doing it to fit in, or whatever you're doing it to, or that you feel like you have to, that's the one that I don't know if I agree with. It should never be because you feel like you have to do it, unless like there's something deep inside of you that's just like waiting to get out and like, oh, I have to do this. If it's from the outside, like I have to do this because everyone else is doing it. Doing cosplay is just being in it. Doesn't mean that you have to be an active participant or even make any money at it. It is a hobby for many, many of us, and it is a space where we want to share something. It is a space where we want to build value, add value, be part of something bigger than ourselves, give the world our interpretation of it. A relatively creative space to get into something like that. There aren't a lot of rules for what you can and cannot make. You want to do a steampunk Batman? Go for it. If you want to do a 2077 version of, Aquaman or Spider-Man, it doesn't matter. Like you can do a John Wick version of Neo. Like I don't care. No, you shouldn't have to limit yourself at all. You shouldn't have, if you want it to be screen accurate because that's what you're looking for, you want it to be exactly the way that it was in a particular movie because it's what you want to do. And, if you're just going to a con, you want to wear something that, you picked up for $20 and you just want to hang out with your friends, go for it. I mean, this is Reese's peanut butter cups. Just do you, tell your story. And that's it. And I'm here to share my story, but I'm also here to share your story. So if you are a cosplayer and you want to be on the show, feel free to send me an email, scottyb@hocspodcast.com. I would be happy to talk to you about that and to see if it would be a good fit for both of us to have you on the show, to see what kind of an impact that you are making inside the cosplay community, because it's always so interesting. The guests have been amazing, every single one, and I thank you all so much. And I thank you, the listeners, as well, for tuning in. Thank you so much one more week for being here. This is Scotty B, and I'll see you soon.